General view of granting sole source contracts for works and services needed by the city. And when you draw that line in the RFP process, what thresholds do you put in?
Oh, I don't know. That's a great question. I'm generally opposed to sole source contract. There are provisions for sole source contracts in the ordinance code. For example, the Motorola deal, our telecommunications infrastructure, our emergency telecommunication infrastructure, the trunk, the base of it is a Motorola product, and there was talk about sole sourcing the improvement, the upgrades necessary to bring it up to, I guess, new standards. There was talk about outsourcing it or sole sourcing it to Motorola. I was supportive of that because, again, the competitors, you can't bid it because you bid it to Harris. Harris has got to come in and replace all the systems. So it doesn't make economic sense. So I think in limited situations it makes sense. But generally speaking, for example, garbage, waste management, whatever it is, operational landfill. I mean, that's something that should be sole source. That should not be a no bid process. That should be a bid contract. SMG, for example, there's another one. SMG, Sports Management Group. You realize that contract has not been rebid since they took it over, I think back in the 80s. Dick Kravitz was on the council at that time. Let me tell you that there's going to be screaming at City Hall when that goes out to bid next year, because it's going out to bid. But what's the threshold for sole source? I don't think it should be a monetary threshold. I think it should just depend upon the circumstances, whether or not I think every contract should be bid regardless of cost or value, unless of course it fits the criteria appropriate for a sole source contract.
They put in code the sole source conditions.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Don again?
Oh, pardon me. What would you do to encourage transparency and public access to government and public participation in the legislative process?
You know, I'm just going to continue to keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, I think one of the roles of the council president is to lead by example. And I got to tell you, I think Susie and I have been very, very transparent in our dealings with the public. A lot of times, council members will brand certain individuals or brand certain groups of wing nuts or crazy people, and they stop responding. I've never done that, and no matter how crazy I think someone is, I think they have an opportunity, they have a right to be represented, to be heard. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about I mean, and Tony knows, since I've been on council, my first year on council, we were the guys who got you copies of the budget, we got you everything. No one else would do it. So I'll just continue to do what I'm doing. I think there needs to be a better explanation of what we do at council. You know, to your point, Mr. Morrell, I mean, you sometimes you read the highlights, the excerpts, and when we're doing stuff, people, we vote. A lot of times I'll say for our listening and watching audience at home, I want you to understand what it is we just did. I think that goes a long way. I think probably further additional advertising of public hearings or better scheduling of public hearings on matters is probably important. Maybe the newspaper plays a role in that. I think in the budget process this past year, I think it was very transparent. I think we were very receptive to all points of view, while at the same time understanding that we're a very diverse, complex city with competing demands. So just continue to keep doing what I'm doing and hope that my colleagues catch on as well. And stay out of restaurants after controversial votes.
Don't leave the meeting early to go to any restaurant.
As I said after that, I said, council business trumps social calendars, period.
Glad to hear that. Would you like to ask this question, Conrad?
Sure. What distinguishes you from your opponent or opponents and specifically makes you and not them the right choice for the voters of your context?
I think what distinguishes me are the same factors that distinguished me 4 years ago when I ran, plus an additional measure of an experience and maturity. I'm not a career politician. I never sought elected office prior to running this past time. I ran because I wanted to be a passionate, independent advocate on behalf of my constituents. I consider myself a person of my people. I hear them, I respond to them, I'm respectful. It was interesting, I was asked a question by one of my colleagues when we were dealing with the animal bill. You know, remember we held a special council meeting, only 4 people showed up from the council, but regardless of that, it was very, very, very well received. And I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues who was in leadership, and he asked me, he said, Jack, you seem to spend an inordinate amount of time on issues that I know you can't really care about. And he says, why do you do that? I said, well, for 2 reasons. Number one, I said, because I have an obligation as the council president, to make certain that things run smoothly at the council, so as to the extent that we can resolve issues, difficult issues before they come before the full council for consideration, I think it's appropriate. Number two, it's part of the job, man. It's part of the job. Just because I don't, just because you may not care about the fact that Odile Gracie's drainage ditch is backing up, it's part of the job. It's part of the job, and that's what I do. I think what distinguishes with me as well is my professional, my business, my educational background. I have a bachelor's degree in history and theology. I was in religious life for a short period of time. I don't know if you ever know. I was studying to be a priest until they thought better of it. But it's a whole other story. Actually, it wasn't a priest. It was a Christian. I was a Christian brother. It was a semi-monastic community. But the monk's life just wasn't for me. But so I have an undergraduate degree in history and theology. I have an MBA in finance. I spent 5-7 years on Wall Street in an analysis business development position. And then I went to law school, practicing law now for 15 years, both in-house and recently became a partner with the law firm of Brennan Diamond. So I got a lot of business experience, legal experience. I love my community. I've been able to provide effective leadership on the council, keep us from all killing each other. And I seek to continue that as I go forward. So as I said, I got the love, I got the passion, I got the independence, I got the drive, and on top of that now I've got the wounds and I've got the wisdom.
And before we wrap this up, and we only have one other question that's on our standard list, I want to ask you a question that's directly to you, because I think that you felt that the obviously objective approach that we took in trying to come up with specific votes to compare council people to candidates really didn't fairly reflect the process that you took in order to arrive at those votes.
Yeah.
And I understand talking to you about it, but if you could help my panel here.
Here's my frustration when you attempt to vet a voting record, I guess, in a vacuum, not in a vacuum, but objectively. What I shared with you is the fact that no one vote is independent of any other vote. They're all related. It's a body of work. It's a quilt. It's a mosaic. What you do on this particular vote impacts this vote. For example, let's talk about the budget. I could have attacked the budget much like my predecessor did. That is, declare war. Okay? Declare war. No way. We're not going there. But the reality is that the majority of the community, the majority of the city didn't want to go in that direction. And the majority of the council probably didn't want to go in that direction because there was too much uncertainty as to what impact that ultimately would have on services, right? So again, what happened was my predecessor got an open warfare with the mayor, all right? Now, what I find interesting is that war, that bickering, that fighting was very destructive of any opportunity for cooperation. And you realize that in his term, we were not successful in getting the pensions done, getting any movement on the pensions. We were not successful in getting any union contracts done. So when I came to the budget this time, I said, all right, we're going to have to be careful about how we do here, what we do here on the budget. We're going to be effective, and we're going to do our best in the budget, but we're also going to do it in a very respectful manner. I'm not going to go out there and throw rocks, because if I throw rocks, then I'm going to split the council, I'm going to split the mayor with the council, and we're not going to be able to hold the line on the union contracts. We're not going to be able, if we get there, we're not going to be able to hold it tight as a unified body so as to impose cuts. If I had declared war, I would not have been able to hold the council when the council was attempting to restore those laid-off firefighters. I don't know if you saw that at the 11th hour. Yeah. There was an amendment offered. Now, all well and good, but you know what? As to my point, you restore them, if you restore them in the budget, you've just capitulated at the bargaining table. You can't do it. You've got to hold the line. Now, how do you hold the line? You hold the line by having a unified group. Not going to always agree, not just going to come across perfect, but you've got to understand that sometimes there's a greater good, there's a bigger fight here, and I think that in as much as we were successful in holding the budget flat from year to year, and we were successful in getting the unions to play ball and police and fire pension to play ball, I think that's what's lost in that type of analysis. For example, Tony and I were talking about, I guess it was 3 years ago, when the corrections bill came up, right? And we dropped the 30-year to 20-year, right? You know what? We had no choice, because it had already been agreed to and signed off at the bargaining table between the union. So essentially, it was an administrative issue for us. We could have voted no to it, but that would have resulted in an unfair labor practice charge, litigation, and probably a federal judge saying, make them whole. So again, my point is that you can look at a voting record. But you need to understand 2 points: that not all votes are related. All votes are related, and there's a lot that occurs behind the scenes that might not be reflected in just by mashing the green or red button. So, you know, from a personal perspective, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine the other day in New York. He's a piece of work, and he says, how's your re-election going? I said, it's going all right. Tea Party people are kicking me in the teeth. He goes, you? Why? So you're the cheapest SOB I ever met in my entire life. And I'm like, I mean, you're like one of the most conservative guys I've ever met in my life. I said, I understand, but it's a complex situation. People are hurt. People are angry. It's a difficult situation. So, in any event, that was my explanation as to my concern with the evaluation of individual voting records.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair enough?
All right, final question. Assuming that concerned taxpayers of Duval County were to officially endorse you, what actions, if any, would you take to inform the electorate of that fact?
I'd shout it from the mountaintops.
Good enough.
Look at these guys. They've been kicking me in the teeth for the last year, and they endorsed me. It's like the firemen. It's like the firemen endorsed me. I laid off their guys. I took 2% out of them, and they endorsed me. I'm pretty proud of that.